We're going to break all the rules today, okay? Because I was doing some research, and guess what? You about to get some information. Let's talk about sewing and the real meaning of Halloween. Also, we're going to get into some very important information, okay? This is something that is repeated throughout history. That last little tidbit I'm going to give you, yeah, Steve. So, here we go. Okay, Samhain is a Celtic pagan festival. Okay, so it's about transition, renewal. They had fire festivals. It was a way to connect with spirit because they believed that spirit basically, the veil was thinnest during this time, and it is like the eve of October 31st into the eve of November 1st, where they feel that the veil is the thinnest, right? And so I was reading through all this information, and I was wondering, like, how was it converted to Halloween, right? So I'm gonna run it off to you, and then I'm gonna expound on it. So it says the ancient festival was practiced by ancient Celts, so the Celtic, or Celtics, however you say it, but I say Celtic, 2,000 years ago across Ireland, Scotland, and parts of Europe. It means Samhain means summer's end, which marks the harvest and the start of winter. So it is the time between both solstice, summer solstice and winter solstice. It marks the midpoint. So this is where ancestors are honored. This is similar to like Day of the Dead, for like different Hispanic, Mexican cultures, different things like that. And it's a time to honor your ancestors, offer them drinks, visit with the spirits. Fires are put in place to protect from like any kind of like mischievous entities, and Druid priests actually led rituals, divination ceremonies, fire festivals, and celebrated death as a part of the life cycle. That is very important. So here's where the church did an adaptation to, and they called it All Hallows Eve, right? So when Christianity spread through Celt lands, the church sought to blend rather than ban. That is very important. The Christianity has always blended rather than banned because it keeps people from being not accepting Christianity or going into an uproar. It says around the 8th century, Pope Gregory III moved All Saints Day to honor saints and martyrs to November 1st, possibly to align with Samhain. Okay, that's not when it originally was. The night before, known as All Hallows Eve. So it is showing the duality of, you got to demonize something and then show that and then you create an All Saints Day for the saints to save everybody from the dark. You see that? You see that flip? Pay attention. Later, All Saints Day it was on November 2nd. So initially it was later All Saints Day was added to honor the departing souls, completing the 3-day observation of Hallowtide, which was from October 31st to November 2nd. So you have to think about every time you know Christianity has went to different countries, it has learned their ways, adapted to them instead of banning they blended it to make it more accepted. So it's like a little white lie. So you take a little bit of the truth and you add it to what it is that you want the person to believe to fully help convert them, which helps the ego to be comfortable. Remember that. That is how people are controlled. Okay, so as centuries passed, Samhain customs evolved and spread, especially through Irish and Scottish immigrants that immigrated to North America. So not only do you go into a land and you blend instead of band, but then you bring the people to where you're from, to a new land where you are able to reinforce what was blended in order for it to expand into what you wanted to, something more accepted, believing that you're erasing past cultures. in the minds of those, because most of the time you were bringing in families. So by the time it got to, you know, your children or your grandchildren or your great grandchildren, those customs are forgotten unless they were spoken to and you had storytellers that actually was able to convey that story in its most truthful state as it could be. So when they came to America, so English, Irish and Scottish immigrants, they came to America. So basically, the land was so poor, according to history books. This is history books. America went and made, especially the Irish, that I know of. I hadn't seen this about the Scottish, but it makes sense to me. They basically went into the land. It was so poor. They basically gave them the option of citizenship. They said, if you come and serve in our army for a year, you can have citizenship in North America. And the people did it. So these customs, they brought the, you know, they did the costumes, because normally the costumes and the mask, when the Druid priests were doing it, was to disguise the people from the evil spirits. It was a way of protection. Now in Halloween, it's to disguise yourself from spirits, period. So it went from disguising yourself from evil to, and as a way of protection, to actually protecting yourself from the spirit world, because they understood the power of connecting with the spirit world. And then also having jack-o'-lanterns, which derive from Celtic traditions of carving turnips with faces to scare away spirits. In America, pumpkins replaced them. Okay, trick-or-treating comes from souling, when the poor or children would go door to door on All Saints Day offering prayers for the dead in exchange for food, aka soul cakes. And then the bonfires and the fireworks. The bonfire was replaced by the fireworks, where the fire rituals transform into community celebrations versus rituals ceremony. It was about taking the power out of the hands of the people. The Druid priests understood, was empowering the people to a certain degree. They would hold the festivals to remind people that they were able to commune. Christianity wanted Christianity to be the avenue that brought in their priests, their ministers, to bring in spirit versus you communing with spirit on your own. So, Samhain represents a portal in time. When frequencies shift, allowing communication between dimensions. Okay? It's a cosmic pause between light and dark, death and rebirth, matter and spirit. Okay? It's a deep reflection, an ancestral connection, a manifestation where you can release the old and prepare for new cycles. If you remember the true meaning, whenever something is called pagan, it means outside of Christianity, outside of normal practices, outside of the big three, as they call it, of religions, where you have holy books that represent what it is that you're supposed to. There are manuals. When you're born, you're not given a manual, but within Christianity and other practices, you are given a manual of how you're supposed to engage with stories that actually tell you how you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, and how you're supposed to handle situations according to those books. If you look at the meaning and derivative of every single pagan holiday, it held a more spiritual meaning that the blending that Christianity did instead of banding was a full brainwashing, a full washing, a full whitewashing of the history. Once you adopt it, it is a spell. Once you take on those kind of customs and practices, you basically validate those and release the ones that connected you more to spirit. Check it. This was so good. This was so good. So, you can create your own traditions, and you can start today.